device challenges, you guys will have the ability to tackle those things. But imagine not being able to get your idea to market and it sits on your garage shelf, or someone else takes it because you having cash flow problems, because you don't understand how cash works in bigger firms. So today's focus isn't necessarily going to be understanding finance. That's a whole semester or MBA in and of itself, but it's letting you know these are some of the things that you will need to address and learn at some point. Now, there's all sorts of metrics, ratios, charts, and trends that you can use to run a company, but there's three basic foundational financial statements that every company uses. And that's a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, and a statement of cash flows. The profit and loss statement, it's also called an income statement. Usually you look at that on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, and it says, here's the money that came in, here's the money that went out, and at the end of that time period, here's what was left over. Were we profitable? Now, it does get more complex with depreciation, amortization. EBITDA is a really important business metric to look at. However, at its basic core, profit loss statement is cash in, cash out, what was left. That's different than a balance sheet, which looks at the overall health of a company at a certain time point. So it's going to look at all of your assets, including your cash, and it's going to look at the liabilities, which is what you owe to other people, what you owe for the next year and what you owe long term. So maybe you owe the bank this much money. Maybe you owe a mortgage on the building that you're in. All those things are incorporated into the balance sheet. It looks at the assets of the company, and those balance out against the liabilities and the equity on the other side. It's really important to have command of all of these things when you go into leading a business. And then the third thing, and admittedly the most difficult to understand, is the statement of cash flows. Now, different than a profit and loss statement, a statement of cash flows is going to answer the question, did we generate cash that month? So a profit and loss statement will tell you if you're profitable. That is a different metric and a different number at the end of the day than did we actually generate cash. Cash flows can be tricky, but understanding cash and how it flows is one of the fundamental concepts that you have to understand in business. And it's not the same as balancing your checkbook, which I know most people don't balance their checkbook these days. But if you are a business owner and you're making decisions not only for you, but for the people that work for you and with you, they're depending on the stability of their paycheck to pay their mortgage, to pay their rent, to put their kids through school, or to put away for retirement. And so they're looking to the decisions you make to continue the stability of that cash flow for their own health and lives. So having a fundamental understanding and grasp of these concepts is just critically important. Here is an example of each one of those three: profit, loss, balance sheet, and cash flow right here. And I know from a high level, they look the same. It's a bunch of words and numbers. They're all very different, interplay with each other, but they all tell different stories and allow you to make different decisions. And from these, then you can start doing the ratios and trends and charts and all that stuff to help you make decisions in business. All right, there is a saying in business that's kind of one of those fundamentals, and it's cash is king. So turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is always king. During COVID over the last year, where's our cash position was the one question that I kept aligned with my controller probably on a daily basis. It is the thing that I keep my finger on the pulse of for the company, because it not only allows us to know where we're at now, but how we're doing 3 months out, what the seasonality looks like. Are we prepared for a potential recession? The cash and your cash position are the things that are going to get you through all of those. It is important to understand that you can run a profit as a company, but not generate cash and not have cash. And those are important concepts to understand. Now, speaking of cash, if you're going to start your own business, run your own business, you're going to need cash to start that up. So let's talk about where that money comes from. What are the options here? Could come from your own personal savings. You could have friends and family invest into your startup. Maybe the tooth fairy, or maybe you got some sort of a hidden treasure box in your backyard. I don't. But there's also other options that you have. There's the traditional banks and institutions, angel investors, and venture capitalists, just to name a few. Now, each one of these is going to invest in your company differently based on the risks and the reward that they see. For example, a bank may provide you with a conventional loan to start your business. They are going to have a very structured return. They're going to say, we'll give you $10, and within the next 2 years, we want $11 back on these dates. This is the return. This is the time frame. There's no wiggle room in there at all. Banks are probably going to give a small to moderate amount of money to start up. However, a bank is going to want you to have some sort of a collateral to make that happen. They're going to want to see your skin in the game. So a lot of times, probably more often than not, you'll see small business owners put up their own homes as collateral, or some sort of other, equity in their home, some sort of collateral that they have built up to say, yes, bank, I will gladly take your money, and I promise if I don't pay it back, you can have this in return. That's what collateral is. And for small business owners, that's typically your home. So knowing that long term, if you're going to want to go down that path, if you know you're going to need money, you may need a loan. What are the things that you need to do now, decisions you need to make now in order to build up to that point, so that you have some collateral? Because if you don't have that collateral, you're probably not going to get the loan. If you can't get the loan, you can't get the money, you can't get your product to market. Another type of investor is called an angel investor. These are persons who donate their own money to invest in your company. So let's say I'm an angel investor. I'm going to give you $100,000 of my money. Now, I'm probably going to act as a coach to help you get your product to market. And I'm going to be probably pretty involved in checking in and seeing how you're doing. Probably going to expect a return of 20 to 25% on that. But it's typically a smaller amount of money, relatively speaking. At the other end of that spectrum is a venture capitalist. Now, VCs manage a pool of other people's money. So you're talking about a lot more money. And they're willing to take riskier decisions and risks on business, but they're also looking for a higher payout, a 25 to 30, 35% return on their investment. Venture capitalists are typically looking for unicorns. They want to invest $5 million into a company, but they're looking for that return at the $1 billion level. That's what a unicorn is a $1 billion startup. Typically, they're probably not going to be as involved as an angel investor. However, they'll be pretty strict on their returns. They want this on this time frame, and come on, where's the proof in the pudding? Both angel and VC will probably negotiate an equity stake in your business, which is the trade-off of saying, I'll give you this much money and I want 20% of the shares or 10% of the shares. And you, as a business owner, need to be prepared with what you are willing to negotiate. Are you willing to give up part of the stake and part of the say and part of the decisions in your company in order to have that money? Or if you want full control, if you want full ownership, maybe you will forego that seed money and have a smaller or longer ramp up to get to scale. These are the decisions that you need to be aware of and understand going into that. And it goes without saying on the sidebar that you need to understand interest and how it plays into all these things, and returns and timeframes and whatnot. Now, all of these investors are going to be looking at your personal finances. And again, this is all predicated on you starting your own business. So they're going to be looking at your personal finances. An investor is not going to give you their money if they don't feel that you have managed your money well. So the advice I have to you guys as college students is to start saving. If you don't know what your credit score is, look into it and start building it up. Focus on your personal finances now, because the more you do that now, the better off you'll be in 5-7 years when you're ready to start your own company, or whatever that time frame looks like. You can't wait to make that happen. What are the decisions that you're making today with your personal finances, and how will it impact your desire to start your own company, to need investment money in the future? You want to make sure you have a long-term, forward-focused view of finances, and that includes your personal finances. So in summary, on the finance side, The big three financial statements are profit and loss, balance sheet, and the statement of cash flows. Important to understand all of those. And it's not difficult to find information on where to learn. You don't need to take a business class necessarily. This stuff is available on YouTube and Khan Academy, Concorsa. There's all sorts of free information out there. To have a basic conversational understanding of these doesn't take a lot. To have a real grasp and understanding and negotiation standpoint, you're probably going to need a more in-depth knowledge of financial statements. Understanding how cash flow works, EBITDA, how it relates to profitability, that's a really important business acumen skill that you're going to need in order to start your own company. And then knowing those funding options. Now, this basis in finance, if you're not going to start your own business, if that's not your path, which is totally fine. It wasn't my path and probably won't be. A solid finance background has never steered anybody wrong. If it's your career path goal to perhaps be a project manager at Google or a big company, you're going to be in charge of your budget for that project, which means you need to have that finance background as well. So having a finance background or just understanding the basics, no matter what your career path, is going to serve you well. Okay, let's go on to that second business acumen topic today, which is strategic planning. I love strategic planning. I get kind of geeky on this stuff. Specifically, strategic planning is the mission, vision, and values of your company. That's considered the strategic core of the company. And then offshoots of that are SWOT analysis, goals, OKRs, and whatnot. And for the purpose of today, we're going to focus on mission, vision, values. Now, when I started at Pepperdine, our first semester and our longest semester was on organizational behavior and strategy, meaning the mission, vision, values. And in my arrogance and in my ignorance, I was like, come on, let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to the accounting and the finance and the econ and the law. Like I wanted to get to the hard skills and breeze through this stuff. I thought it was going by too slow and taking too much time. And it wasn't until I became CEO 2 years ago that I realized there was a reason that they started with that, because it is the foundation and the core of a company. And if you have the desire to start your own company, having these things figured out at the start will help you to align your company long-term to your goals and clarity of vision, clarity of purpose. Sure, you can add it in later on down the road on the back end. That's easy too. But at that point, it kind of can take on a life of its own. It may not really be your vision as much as other people provide input. If you're the business owner, then these are your decisions to make. So my encouragement would be to think through this now. What kind of business do I want? What's the purpose of it? What do I want to do with it? So that when you're ready to start your own business, you've done a lot of the contemplation and thought process that goes into that. So these are Westpak's mission, vision, and values. When I became CEO, we had mission and vision and values already determined for the company. And I kind of knew them. They're really, really beefy. It was a long paragraph with a lot of commas and a lot of buzzy words. And because it was so big, it was hard to wrap your head around from a memory standpoint, and therefore hard to inculcate into the day-to-day operations. So the mission statement is the, what are we doing? What do we do right now? What's the purpose of this company? So my team got together and we invited a couple other stakeholders outside the leadership and management team so that we had a bigger voice at the table. And we reworked the mission statement. What do we do? What does this company do at its core? And we wanted it to be as succinct as possible. So Westpak, at its core, we exist to deliver high quality testing solutions for our partners in an open, inclusive environment. I could say that in my sleep. And I guarantee you that every single word in there was debated. In and for we. Those little words were just as important as the big ones: solutions, partners, open and inclusive. We worked on this for probably 2 days. I'm really proud of it. I love it. It speaks to me, makes me excited, gets me up, gets me motivated. But this is the what we do on a day-to-day basis. The vision statement is the where are we going to? It's the point on the horizon out there. And if you can get everybody aligned to that point on horizon, and imagine everyone's in a boat with an oar and they're all oaring or rowing. If you have that aligned point out on the horizon and everyone's going towards it at the same time, that's going to be a much more efficient and successful team than if that point is not determined and everyone's just rowing in a different direction. kind of the analogy that I like to use for vision statements. So Westpak, our company, we're not a global player. We're not even a national player. We're a regional player. We hang out in California for the most part. We have customers from all over the country, but for the most part, we're a California company, California customers. So it's not authentic for us to say, we want to be the biggest test lab, or we want to be the most profitable or the wealthiest. That's not our goal. However, it does ring true to say that we want to be the world's most trusted test lab. We want our customers to know that they can absolutely trust us to get the work done, to get it done right, and to be honest about their results. Because at the end of the day, we are getting paid. We're giving you the results of our testing, and it has to be truthful. We sell our data. We sell data that we produced for you, so it has to be trustworthy. So our vision statement is to be the world's most trusted test lab. I hear this once or twice a week throughout conversations. People will bring it up. Well, if we're making this decision, in order for us to be the world's most trusted test lab, we should go down this path, or we should consider this, or we shouldn't consider that. And I just love it that those come up in conversations as frequently as they do. The third element are the core values. Again, MBA buzzy words. However, I have learned over the last 2 years that core values truly, truly are a compass on which a company bases its decisions. They're not just something you post on the wall or on the website. They're something that we decide paths forward based on these core values. Each of these ones listed here, trusted, focus, forward, why your customers, unique and amazing culture, and stewardship, they each have components under them. So for example, stewardship internally says protecting our people, our profits, and our future. So we care for our people, we care for the long-term stability of the company. We make decisions to focus on the long-term stability. We're not making decisions with a quarterly view for stakeholder returns like a stock market company. We're making long-term stability of a company type decisions. So again, that's what values are. Why are values important? If you own a company, that's your path to own your own company. You get to determine what those values are from the start. And then the decisions that you make as a business owner will be founded on those core values. Excuse me. For example, who am I going to hire? What do my core values say about the type of people that I hire? What do my core values say about how I treat my employees? Am I going to offer benefits or not? Am I going to offer a work from home policy or not? Am I going to offer a flexible work environment or not? These are the decisions that you make as an owner for the type of company that you want. And we'll get to that purpose in just a second. However, if you don't want to own your company and you want to work for a company, you have the ability to go find a company whose core values are aligned with your own. And the beauty there is that if you can find that, you no longer have a job, you have a calling or a passion. And that's something that's so rare and unique, and it's worth looking for, and it's worth fighting for. But in order to find that alignment, you have to know your personal core values. And that's not something that comes overnight. They will evolve over time. What's important to you in your 20s will not be the same thing that's important to you in your 30s or 40s. They will evolve. However, taking the time to contemplate that, meditate on it, really wonder what is important to me. It's an important thing to do, and it's something that I don't think that college students are encouraged to do often enough, but I would encourage you to do that. Figure out what your core values are. Find a company whose core values are aligned, because that's really where magic happens. I mentioned the purpose of the company. If it's your path to start your own company, start thinking now about what type of company you want to build. Do you want one that's a lifestyle company where the purpose is to provide enough profits for you to go to Tahiti twice a year and have a house in Atherton and have a Bentley or two and put your kids in the best schools? It's totally fine. Or is it your purpose to develop a company who focuses on the community and turns its profits back into the community and its personnel? Or is it your intention to build a company that will grow with the intention of a big payout and sell off at the end? Do you want to develop a company with the intention of selling to Google or Salesforce or being acquired by a larger player? None of these is better than the other. It is all a personal choice, and it entirely has to do with what you want to do with your career. Knowing that, however, you will make decisions about which path to go down as a result of knowing that. If you're under 50 people, you don't have to provide health insurance. Are you going to, if you only have 5 employees, are you going to provide health insurance because you feel it's the right thing to do? Or is that not something you want to do because you feel those profits are better spent somewhere else? These are decisions that you have to make along the way. And the basis of those decisions, what's the purpose of my company and what are my core values? Going back to this previous slide here, we covered mission, vision, values. Some of those other elements there, SWOT, long-term goals, and OKRs. I kind of put a slide here for those. In the upper left corner, you have what's called a balanced scorecard, which typically looks at 4 things: customers, learning and growth, I think culture, and finances. No, quality, sorry, not culture, quality. Those are typically the 4 elements you see of a balanced scorecard. And if you have KPIs for each of those that all nest up into the company and the whole company is aligned in the same direction, that's the purpose of a balanced scorecard. The spider chart on the upper right-hand corner looks at the 5 barriers to entry. This is kind of an interesting thing. If you look at whatever industry you want to go into and you consider what are the barriers to entry, if there's low barriers to entry, meaning it's not that difficult to start a company, you don't need a lot of capital to get it going, that means it's probably going to have a lot more competition to deal with, maybe a shoe company. However, if you need a ton of capital to get going, you need a couple $1 million worth of equipment and a bunch of, I don't know, PhDs to make it happen, that's a higher barrier to entry, which means you'll have fewer competition. But there's 5 different elements like that to look at when you're considering starting your own business. The 5 barriers to entry are 5 forces, Porter's 5 forces. A SWOT analysis, you've probably heard of. It looks at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats of an industry and of your company. It usually puts them into a grid, and you can manipulate things and make decisions based on where are our strengths and opportunities, where are the threats and weaknesses, where do we need to shore up. I was taught in my schooling not to look at the strengths and weaknesses first, because that's a company view, but to look at the opportunities and threats first. That's an industry view. So you want to start with the big picture, the O and the T, and then focus on the S and the W. So they like to call it an OTSU, which no one's heard of, but let's just say a SWOT analysis backwards. And then finally, OKRs. This is something that Westpac implemented 2 years ago, objectives and key results. The objectives are your 1-year qualitative goals for the company, and the KRs or key results. Those are quarterly qualitative goals. So every quarter you have KRs that you're working towards, and they're metricized and numbered. And throughout the year, if you complete your KRs, you will reach that qualitative goal at the end of the year. All right. So in summary, if you want to own your own company, longer term, if you want to start a company in 5 years, that's your goal and your mission. Start thinking about some of these business decisions now. Just noodle them in the back of your head, let it marinate, because it's stuff that takes a long time to think through and contemplate. And then if you're able to do that and really embed that into the DNA of your company, oh man, you'll be in just such a place for success. Get yourself into that 18% of success. However, if you want to work for a company, again, that's the path I took. Absolutely fantastic path. You're able to make choices of who you want to work with based on that alignment. And if you can do that, then again, your work will shift from being a job to being a passion or a calling. And that's where the magic happens. All right, let's jump into how we bridge those gaps. So the 2 main business acumen skills I've talked about today are finance and some strategic planning stuff. How do you get there? You're in school right now, you're focused on, coding or mechanical engineering or whatever your engineering field is. How do I bridge that gap over there? There's kind of 9 things that I wanted to share with you, 9 nuggets. And I've put them into a couple different categories: education, exposure, and enjoyment. So first, education. I would encourage you to take some business classes. I did look up San Jose State's business minor is an additional 15 units. I'm not sure if that's a semester or a quarter or whatnot, but maybe it's worth staying in school for an extra 6 to 9 months to get that done. If international business is going to be somehow incorporated into your world, if you're going to work for a big company, then you'll probably be exposed to some sort of globalization. If you think that you're going to be doing manufacturing in another country, I would encourage you to have some sort of an education in international business. And finally, learn some project management skills. One of your speakers earlier this year, I think it was Tom Mazzoni, talked about Agile sprint methodology. That's what Westpac uses as well. It is a fantastic thing. I highly encourage you to get more exposure and education to it now. The platform that Westpac uses is the Atlassian Platform, which includes Confluence and Jira project management and the Jira service desk. I know you can get Confluence as a free license as an individual. I'm not sure about Jira, but imagine tackling your senior project, or even, you know, a house project, maybe a remodeling project, from the perspective of Agile Sprint. Use that as a trial run to learn how to use the system. Use it on your own. And then imagine going into an interview. An interview question is, so do you have any project management? You say, actually, I did my entire senior research project with the sprint methodology method. And it was really interesting how the retrospectives helped me to have a more successful sprint every, you know, blah, 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 blah. You can go on and on. Imagine the power of that answer in an interview if you have taken the time to proactively learn and implement and practice that skill. The second thing I have here is to travel. Oh, goodness, do I miss traveling? There's no better way to experience other business types and cultures and practices and international culture normalcies than to travel. And if you want to have kids at some point, travel before you have kids, because it's difficult to do both on the back end. I would consider internship and job opportunities outside or adjacent to your field of study right now. If biotech is the field you're going into, I guarantee you that no part of biotech is not touched by the quality department. They got their tentacles everywhere, which is a good thing because that provides consistency of product. So if you're going to go into biotech, consider doing a summer internship in some sort of a quality role. It's not super difficult to get your ASQ certification. Maybe that's something that you do as a class or on your own for a semester. If you are doing a computer engineering degree, consider taking an operations role. If you're studying the smallest and most finite ones and zeros that make a company work, consider also studying the big picture and what it looks like from the whole side, the warehousing side. And imagine putting those together and the power that will provide you to be a successful contributor to your company. If you are in civil engineering, consider spending a summer actually building the roads. You know, be a laborer, get out there and do the physical labor, because how much knowledge would that provide you when you're doing the design work for the civil side, if you've actually done the physical work first. So get outside your field. I know that the desire is, this is my field of study, therefore that needs to be my internship. But I would encourage you to look at the adjacent fields or maybe adjacent parts of the supply chain. It gives you just a really important holistic view of what you're going to do long term. And finally, on the exposure side, try new hobbies. I spent a summer replacing the engine in my car with my dad when I was in college. And I guarantee you, that exposure, more than anything else, taught me about mechanical systems, about tools, the difference between a torque wrench and a regular wrench, a braking bar, all that stuff. It's wonderful exposure for me from a mechanical standpoint. And now not only can I drive a stick shift, but I can tell you exactly how it works. And on the enjoyment side, ask questions, have a growth mindset, have an inquisitive mind. If someone came into our finance group and said, hey, I'm curious how balance sheet works, would you mind spending time with me learning that? I guarantee you, not only would we be happy to sit down and invest an hour or two of time helping to train that employee, but what a great impression that would leave on us if someone who has a mindset to contribute back and to grow and expand their horizons. So ask questions of everybody. You know, if you see your neighbor doing something cool in the front yard, go ask a question about what they're doing and what you can learn from it. I know this makes me sound like an old lady, but I would encourage you to put down your social media and pick up a book. This summer, you know, the iPhones send you the message every week about how much screen time you had during that last week. And this summer I realized, like, man, that was a lot of time. And that's time that I'm looking down at my screen, not paying attention to my kids, not having conversations with my husband or my family, not reading a book. So I shut down all my social media accounts and I picked up my favorite book, Pride and Prejudice, and I reread it, and then I read 4 more books, and I had forgotten the enjoyment of reading and how much I learned from it. So I encourage you to do that. If you're at home tonight, you're on your phone, whatever you're looking at, if it's a game, whatever the current games are, just ask yourself the question, is this bringing me value? Is this good use of my time? What am I learning from this? Is this supporting my longer term goals? Just ask yourself that question. And then finally, and probably most importantly, surround yourself with people who support your goals. It's really, really important to have this, not only family, but friends, your day-to-day interactions. Just have people that will ask you like, hey, how's that going? What are your core values? Open up those conversations. Maybe they're a little awkward at first, but it's all good stuff in the long run. All right, let's go on to what it's been like to lead during this pandemic. 2020, the year that keeps on giving. All right, so y'all are engineers, so you're probably already solving this equation, but this is not a math equation. This is a riddle. I know engineers like to stay inside their boxes and their lines, but I want you to think outside the box, because the answer to this equation isn't 5,815, it's 2020. And what that means is it's a historic equation. 1918 was the Spanish flu, the most deadly epidemic in modern history, where approximately 50 million people perished throughout the world. 1929 was the greatest stock market crash that we've seen, lasted for 2 months and kicked off the Great Depression. 1968 were the race riots sparked by the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Horrible time, specifically in the Midwest, the race riots of Detroit. And it's not to take away from the severity and the importance of each of those years independently. 2020 in some sort of capacity has had elements of each of those simultaneously. During the beginning of COVID, I reached out to one of my friends who was a more tenured CEO, and I said, man, this stuff's crazy. Like, have you ever dealt with this kind of stuff before? And he said, no, never. No one's ever dealt with this confluence of huge things at the same time before. It was new for everyone. New CEOs like me, tenured CEOs like him, all of us were experiencing this thing together for the first time. So I started asking myself this question. Describe in one word what 2020 has been for you. Take a moment and do it yourself. Just pick up a pen. What's 2020 meant to you? For some people, it could be pandemonium. It could be gratitude. It could be chaos. It could be pandemic. The most Googled word of the year this year. If you asked me this question in March, my answer probably would have been chaos. If you asked me in August, my word probably would have been tenacity or grit. Right now, looking at the last 9 months, my word is adaptation. Adaptation is the word of my year. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what leading a company was like in March and April, in the spring and summer. Day one of shelter in place was March 13th or so. It's a couple days before I was supposed to take my kids to Disney World. That was their Christmas present. But we had got word that this was likely coming down the path. So at 11 a.m., I huddled in the conference room with my leadership team, and we said, okay, what are our options? What do we know? We were all on different CDC, county, state websites. Wasn't that much information to make a decision, so we had to do the best we can. About noon, we got the word, this edict is happening. By 12:30, we had made our decisions. We went out to the lab and we pulled our whole group together in the lab, and we said, all right, we have to shut down. This is what we know. This is the decision that we've made, and we communicated that out. Our teams went out, they started talking to their customers, started shutting down their jobs, trying to pack up in the next 3 weeks. And within an hour or two, we got word back from some of our customers that said, oh, no, we're healthcare. You're in our supply chain. Therefore, you're essential as well. You need to stay open. So we took a step back. We contemplated that. We reevaluated. We made new decisions. We figured out what would it take to keep a skeleton crew running. We recommunicated that back out. We went forward, and that set up probably the next couple of weeks of evaluating the little bits of information that we had, or maybe new information, making a decision, communicating, reevaluating, making a decision, recommunicating. Going back to that Agile sprint methodology, that's what it was like over and over and over, this constant adaptation. We had, I think, 50 people go home, and overnight we had to set up IT infrastructure, cybersecurity concerns. our IT team had to adapt to enormously changing circumstances literally overnight. We had parents that literally could not show up for work the next day or the next 12 weeks. So what do we do with all of that project work that had to get done, or the day-to-day operations that had to get done? Who does that get redistributed to? Who do we have that can still do that work? So again, with the adaptation, like, now you got all this work. How are we going to get it all done? What's the priority? What's first? Look at restaurants and small businesses. I live south down in San Juan Bautista, and there's two restaurants in town that took very different tracks. One of them shut down, but started immediate takeout orders. They added phone lines so that they could take multiple calls at once and do all the payments over the phone. They completely rearranged the entire interior of their restaurant so that they had a curbside pickup. And of course, they put the tape in the street and all that we're used to seeing now. But they adapted quickly because customers still wanted food. We wanted to support the small businesses. So they adapted quickly to be able to support their customers and themselves and their employees. Another restaurant in town shut their doors, put a note up that said, we'll be back when we can, probably thinking it was going to be 3 or 4 weeks. But 3 or 4 months later, they were still down. 6 months later, they were saying, geez, what do we do now? And then they started figuring out how to open back up. There's a town near me, and they just announced last month that they were going to open up the little outdoor dining parklets on the main street and change the traffic to a one-way flow, which we've seen in every other city. Instead of doing that in April or May, like most cities did, they waited until November, until it's too cold to eat outside. Think about how much damage that did to those small businesses who weren't able to take advantage of the summer months and of people who wanted to come in and help them out by supporting small businesses. So to go back to some of those business lessons, cash is always king, right? And the decisions that we made as adapting through that were supported by what's the cash perspective of this, as well as what are the core values? How do those align? Which one's the priority? We did make some very, very challenging financial and employment decisions during COVID, and the core values were always the basis of that. Speaking of core values, the core values of my team members and how their personal core values informed and drove their decisions was phenomenal during COVID. I had managers of team members, the team went on FMLA, the managers worked 12 to 15 hours daily for 4 months without a single complaint, because I knew that was the work that needed to get done. I had team members that offered up their salaries as pay cuts. They said, we're comfortable, we have enough in savings, other people need it more. Go ahead and take an extra 20% cut from my salary because I'm good. I can do that for the greater good. The way that my team showed up during COVID will probably be one of the most inspirational things I will see throughout my career. So proud and grateful of my team. And that exposure, what they did, gave me this whole perspective of silver linings. And you guys know what silver linings are. Every cloud that you see, the sun's behind it somewhere, and it will shine up and make a rim around the cloud. That's the silver lining. So for me personally, the thing that allowed me to get through this past year of pressure cooker was a focus on the silver lining. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, it's this year so hard and this and that, and my mom was evacuated because of the fires, and I had 6 other friends evacuated because of the fires, and this and that. There's always a silver lining to be seen. If you can focus on that, it shifts your perspective, and it just makes for easier going. It makes it a little bit more bearable. So for me, the silver lining of 2020 has been all of the lessons that I've learned that I never would have had the opportunity to learn if it were a normal, prosperous year. These lessons were afforded to me because of the challenges that came about. Like, for example, I've learned how to have difficult and uncomfortable and awkward conversations about race as a result of this past summer and the movements that we've seen. Those conversations were kind of elusive to me before this year. I've learned the importance of diversity and equity, and that it's not a poster on the wall. It is not simply something that you put on the website. It has to be part of the DNA of a company. It has to be real and never a smoke and mirrors thing. It takes time to figure that stuff out and to make proper long-term sustainable changes. I've learned that listening, for me to shut up and listen is probably more important most of the time than for me to do the talking. I've learned creative ways to get things done that don't require commuting and flights. I found 10 extra hours a week where I'm not commuting. I'm not rushing home and stressed out because I just drove 15 miles an hour for a while and now I'm, late for dinner and I missed this or I missed a soccer game or whatnot. Learn more creative ways to get those things done. I've learned the value of my time, and that if something is taking up my time but it's not providing me value, maybe it's not worth having in my life. So I've really kind of been surgical about cutting out things of my life that aren't value producing. I've learned that my health is something to be unapologetic for. So if I am kind of spinning my wheels in the afternoon, I'm not really as productive as I know I should be, I will call a timeout and jump on my bike or my Peloton for half an hour and just ride it out. And then I'm able to completely refocus. I've learned that it's okay for me to go out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and go for a walk in the neighborhood with my husband and come back and then finish up that work later. That's an okay thing because my health is important and the health of my team is important. It's more important than getting the job done. I've learned how much I love to travel and how much I miss it and can't wait to get back to it. I've learned that trust is the absolute most important thing in a relationship. And I've also learned how fragile it is to break and to lose and how hard it is to rebuild after that point. I've learned as a leader that I am only as strong as my team and that it is my responsibility to take care of that team and to make sure that they're doing well. And as much as I've been trying, I've learned that I probably will never be able to cook, which is neither here nor there, but I've enjoyed trying throughout the year. So 2020, yeah, it's been a pressure cooker. However, it's been so full of amazing lessons, and that's been my silver lining, is how much I've learned this year, which has been really cool. So that being said, you engineers, you guys are in a school that is in the heart of the most innovative place in the world. And you're at a time where your careers are starting. You have access to all these amazing companies, amazing professors. You guys have the ability to change the world. And it's so exciting. And my generation is so full of hope and excitement about what you guys can do. And I hope you realize that we're all standing behind you and ready to support you with whatever those innovations are and those great ideas. We're happy to help you get those to market, however that, whatever you need to make that happen, because you guys really can change the future. And it's pretty exciting. I hope you recognize how important that is too. So I want to thank you for your time, spending the last 45 minutes with me or so. If you have any questions, there's my contact information, and I just look forward to any questions you have now. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Nora. This was great. So I think we've got a pretty small group. If you want to stop your screen share, what we could do is just have folks, if you want to just unmute and then ask a question, that would be fine. I have one to start. You said at the very beginning when you were talking about mission, vision, and values that you really used your company's vision statement to guide your decision making. And I'm wondering if you've got any examples of that, especially under COVID, that you might want to share with us or that you can share.
One that not COVID related, it's more test validation type related. When we have new pieces of equipment in house, we have to do validation on them when they come in. And sometimes those validations can take on a life of their own, and they can become bigger than they need to be, bigger than the standard says, maybe bigger than what our competitors are doing. And so the question is, what's the right amount of work to be done? Do you do the bare minimum, or do you go the extra mile? The extra mile is going to take more resources, more time, more money, more effort, more people. And so when you're kind of debating, well, would you go this path and get it done, which is maybe what our competitors are doing, maybe not, or do we do this path and really go the extra effort? The core values are, and the vision statement of being the most trusted test lab, or what the deciding factor is there. And for us, that would be do the extra effort. Don't do the bare minimum, because that's not what our founder taught us. We're a company based on integrity and customer service. So that's an example of our vision of being the most trusted test lab, going that extra mile. Another example I think would be we had a customer feedback a couple years ago. It's one of my favorite. And the customer said, you guys are the vendor that I don't have to worry about. Meaning when you're doing project management, you have all these vendors, subcontractors, and people doing things for you. And typically you have to manage them, you have to check in with them, you have to be proactive. Where are we at? We're behind schedule. What does that mean? What he told us was, I just give you the work and I know you're going to get it done. I know it's going to be accurate. And I know that if you make a mistake, you'll own it and you'll tell me. And so that's something that's always been important to me. We don't guarantee that we're going to do it perfectly, but we tell you that if we mess it up, we'll be honest about it. We'll make it right. We will do the test for free or whatever it takes to get that done. But people know that they can trust the work that we've done because we have a 35-year history of doing that.
Great. Those are wonderful, wonderful examples. All right. Any questions from our students?
Hi, I have one question.
Yeah, welcome.
When you first started working at Westpac, what were your day-to-day responsibilities?
Breaking stuff. Super cool. Back in the day when I was a newbie on the job, training test engineer, we kind of start off with the easy stuff as a new engineer, which is like drop testing, running the vibration machines, running the loose load machines, doing compression testing, the stuff that's day-to-day operations that's not too difficult or not too complex. The focus is really on package performance testing, which means testing the outside package to make sure that whatever is inside will be protected. At the end of the day, what we do is we test the packages so that when FedEx or UPS get a hold of them later on down the road, we know that that package was designed properly because we've already put it through the paces. So at the start of my career, it was a lot of the drop, compression, loose load type stuff. As you progress, you get to the more complex stuff. You're looking at resonant frequency of components. So someone will give us a product, we'll put accelerometers on different components, see what the natural resonant frequency of that piece, those different pieces are. And then if you do it properly, you design the package to attenuate those amplifications. So that's a little bit more progressing down the road. When you get 5-7 years in, you start doing damage boundary work, which is pretty cool. Shock testing. It's looking for the critical velocity change and critical acceleration points of a product. And then again, if you design the package around that, you're going to minimize the amount of packaging that you need, and therefore you're not putting more waste into the environment. So if you do package design properly, you think about the fragility of the product first. Most times, a product gets developed, get prototypes, get ready to ship it, and then everybody says, oh, we need a package. Let's just put bubble wrap on it or surround it with foam. And then you lead to over packaging and waste and kind of an environmental mess. So if you can really incorporate the product design specs from the start into the package design, you'll have that optimal package design. That was a really long answer for your original question, which was, I started doing drop testing, which was pretty fun.
No, thank you. I enjoyed your answer.
Thank you.
All right, other questions?
Hey, Nora, I have one. If I was going to start a new company, what kind of team members or partners would I want to look for?
Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting in doing my research for this. What did it say? I think 35% of workers right now are kind of the gig economy. So it's not necessarily people that sign up for a job and stick with a company. The model's shifting towards I'm going to do a little bit of work for this company, a little bit of a work for that company, more of a gig economy. So if I were starting a company, I would probably look for the key elements. You need a good finance person. As a CEO, you should be the strategy person. And then you need your technical expertise, but you need to consider if you want them full-time or if you only need them part-time. If you need them part-time, look for someone who's a fractional CFO who can provide you good oversight for finance and a good financial philosophy and strategy, but maybe you don't need a controller full-time until you scale to a couple $1 million or so. But I would say that when you're starting a company, that technical expertise is probably the critical people that you need.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? Yeah, I want to ask also about your experience pre-MBA and post-MBA. Like, how did that change how you approached your work, and then also maybe how did that change how you were perceived in your company? Because you were at your company for some time, and then you did the MBA.
That's a good question. It's funny, I have pictures of myself before and after the MBA, and I did my MBA while I was working full time and had a 2 and a 3-year-old. And the MBA aged me significantly. Like, I
imagine
looked a lot older at the end of that path. But that being said, how did it change me? It absolutely fundamentally changed me, I would say. Before my MBA, I was focused on, the job in front of me, and maybe not really having a good respect for how all the different departments and elements of business interplayed with each other, not really looking too far outside of our walls into the industry, the country, the competitors, just kind of like day-to-day operation of just our business. So I think the MBA definitely gave me a much more holistic perspective of not only looking outside of our walls, but looking at a different time frame. So I can't be looking at what we're doing this month and next month. I need to be looking at 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, and then reverse engineering out, what does it take to make that happen 3 or 5 years out? And that's what strategic planning is. And at the end of the day, the strategic planning stuff is what I geek out on. That's what I really enjoy. Where I should be spending my time. That's probably another thing I learned as a result of the MBA was, where should I be spending my time? And I still am guilty of getting a little bit too involved with, what colors our polo shirts should be, or this and that. And I try to pull myself back. I'm like, no, don't do that. But then again, when it comes to the brand, I still am rather embedded into how we use our brand, how it looks, because your brand is a really important thing for a business. And then how was I perceived internally? That's a good question. I recently gave an all hands meeting to our staff, and I told them, look, I know it's easy to assume that I'm in my office not doing anything and that you guys are doing all the work, because I've been in your shoes, and I remember thinking about that, about my managers. I'm doing all the work. What are they doing in their office? And so I just said, this is what I've been up to the last 9 to 12 months. This is the strategy that I've been working on. And we had these conversations about a potential this or that, or maybe an acquisition, and really opened it up to kind of open the kimono, so to speak, on what I've been doing. I don't think that's a normal thing for a company to do, to really be that transparent with a strategy. And I had a lot of people afterwards say, like, wow, I didn't know that you were doing all that, or, that's pretty cool. I had no idea that you knew about that stuff. Or I'm so glad that Westpac's thinking about these things, because they want to see the company grow. And if you don't communicate that out, that you're having those conversations and thinking through those potential solutions, then there's just the assumption that it's not happening or it's not being discussed. So I would say it was received well.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, do we have any last questions from students? And I also understand if people need to hop off because they've got to get to something else. All right, so I think not hearing any for the moment. Let's thank our speaker. We'll try to put the applause noise near my headphones. This was really, really great. I appreciate it. It was